All right, to further unpack this, let's now welcome a defense analyst, Mr. Helmoed Heitman. Helmoed, thank you so much for your time. Welcome to SA Today. So firstly, talk to us about the call for, of course, the M23 to immediately withdraw as well as cease hostilities in the DRC. Is this even possible, taking into account the still outstanding debates that actually need to be ironed out diplomatically, that is, that we know have been quite a thorny issue, even in the recently held AU heads of states meeting?
I don't think it's practically implementable at all. Rwanda will basically ignore it. They'll make protesting noises, but they'll ignore it unless somebody comes with major sanctions against them, which is difficult, seeing as they're the country providing the forces protecting the gas fields in Mozambique and Cabo Delgado. They've got peacekeeping troops in Central African Republic, and I think they may still have in South Sudan as well. So you can't really lean on them too hard. And they do have the argument that until something's done about the FDLR, they face a threat there. Uganda has the same argument about the Allied Democratic Forces.
So it's
and
accusations.
Burundi about the FNL.
Yes, Helmoed. I mean, it's accusations against counter-accusation. Look, the African bloc on its own had about 3 weeks ago, in fact, actually urged the DRC to directly deal with the M23. And while we know how that relationship between Tshisekedi and Kagame has been with the back and forth accusations, are you convinced that this move then by the UNC will actually yield some positive fruit? I mean, these calls have been echoed by all interested parties, from Russia to Pope Francis, and it has ended even in broken ceasefire agreements.
Look, I'm not confident at all. These things generally don't work. They can work if there's muscle behind them.
Yeah.
You know, if there was a large peace enforcement deployment in the DRC that could actually do something. But I mean, MONUSCO has been there for 20 years with 15,000 troops quite recently and achieved nothing much. So who is going to force anyone to do anything? The answer, as everybody has said, and they're perfectly correctly, the answer must be political. The parties must start speaking to each other at some point. But they only start speaking to each other when both sides are convinced that the muscle is working.
And speaking of that muscle, Helmoed, with those proposed sanctions, I mean, for those UNC, for those that the UNC actually deems as prolonging the conflict. I mean, looking at the current situation on the ground where this fighting is actually taking place, the rebels have taken even more ground, as well as advancing towards other cities in the enclave. I mean, conflicting reports that even locals in the Congo are actually in support of the M23, even going as far as alleging that their government is the one that is currently waging a war against its own people. So it becomes very difficult then to determine where these would be applied.
Yes, I mean, even you look at the scenes of the rebels M23 moving into Bukavu, for instance, with very happy people welcoming them. Now, to be sure, you can stage that to an extent, and anyway, it's politic to be very happy and positive when occupied troops move in. But some of it was clearly genuine. And there have been genuine grievances there, primarily for a lack of proper governance in that whole region. Kinshasa hasn't really tried to govern that region properly, any more, for instance, than Mozambique tried to govern Cabo Delgado. That makes people dissatisfied. That's given rise to those 150 assaulted militias. That has allowed people like the Allied Democratic Forces, the FDLR, to remain there and plot and plan against Uganda and Rwanda, for instance. So against that background, it's an immensely complex situation. They've touched on the illegal mining there, semi-legal mining. You know, there are a lot of people making a lot of money who really don't want the place stabilized. Because then they would be paying taxes and have to have health rules and make a lot less money. So it's a very complex situation that is going to take time to settle, and immense patience. And, you know, jumping up, down, and posturing isn't going to help anybody, which I know sounds silly while one country is busy invading another country, but that's the reality of it. And the Kinshasa government's going to have to accept this and find some way of dealing with it. And it and MONUSCO, if MONUSCO stays after this, are going to have to bite the bullet and do something to neutralize the Allied Democratic Forces, North Resistance Army, the FDLR, and for that matter, the Burundian groups as well. So until they are effectively, convincingly neutralized, those three countries have a reason to go into the DRC, or at least an excuse.
And in search for that political solution, Helmoed, I mean, looking at these current proposals, are they not adding more fire than to the complexities that you've just mentioned? Because it's interesting that the UNC did not call for all the deployed troops as well as soldiers to actually withdraw. It actually singled out Rwanda so that these diplomatic processes could actually resume without the threat of ongoing conflict that could actually spark even a wider regional war. Kagame had alluded and warned against what he called external influence as being at the center of this debate and basically rendering it unresolvable.
Look, good. I mean, at the moment, Burundi's still got troops in the eastern DRC. At the moment, with the permission of the DRC government. Uganda also. In the past, Rwanda was even there with permission of the DRC government. But those arrangements are always broken down. So what are the Ugandan troops doing up in Ituri? Are they only chasing the ADF, or are they busy re-establishing their own links and semi-control? That's, if you've got an ungoverned area, it's the old law of physics. Something will fill a vacuum. And what you've got in the eastern DRC is a governance and military vacuum. And the neighboring countries and the various guerrilla groups and all those local militias are basically all moving to fill that vacuum at some level. And the only way to do that is to have a strong enough force on the ground, put a lot of political pressure on all the political actors, and somehow force the Kinshasa government to actually start rolling out proper governance in Ituri, North Kivu, and South Kivu.
But, I mean, maybe in closing and very quickly, Helmoed, why does it become such a contentious issue when those that are put in charge at finding lasting peaceful solutions or political solutions to this issue, they seemingly just ignore the issue at the core of this when we ask, what is this war really about? And once you bring in the minerals aspect of it, it's as if everybody keeps quiet and totally ignores this very important aspect of what the war is about.
Look, I suppose it's one of those things, too difficult, so let's put it in the pending tray and look at it another day. In the meantime, we'll continue talking and posturing, and maybe somebody will believe we're doing something. And the people on the ground in the meantime suffer. But then how many governments really give a damn about the ordinary person on the street? The answer is not too many, I'm afraid. So, what are the interests at play? A lot of people jumped on the bandwagon immediately. Yes, the mining companies, it's the West of America. Well, but the primary use of coltan is China, so is it maybe the Chinese? Who knows? It's China, I believe, owns some of those mines legally, arranged by arrangement with Kinshasa, but China is also arming Rwanda, and indirectly in 23. So, it's the problem is a lot of interests involved, economic, political, local political, and to reconcile that was more. It should have been done way back when, after the 96.
Yeah.
But it wasn't done then. And It's just grown out of control since then.
Yeah, and we're still here 30 years later. Helmoed, thank you so much for your insight this afternoon. That is Mr. Helmoed Heitman, who is a defense analyst on the DRC situation. The UNC there calling for the armed group, the M23, as well as Rwandan troops to immediately cease all hostilities and also to withdraw from the DRC.